Hi, I want to take just a couple of minutes here to talk about the contributions of John Dewey to communication theory, and I want to turn to just one line of his from his Metaphysics, which it appears in his book Experience in Nature. And the line from that book is, "When communication occurs, events turn into objects, things with a meaning." One way to just very quickly cut to what he means is to suggest that the natural world, including us, is an ongoing concatenated event, that there are complex relation states all around us, and that everything is in a constant flux and an unfolding. It started with the Big Bang, it's called your birth, and then it also goes on to your death. It includes all of the people around you, that the fact that they're aging. It includes the changing of the seasons, the coming and going of the different weather patterns. It even includes different relation states, things like mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, relative. These aren't the names of things. These are relations turned into things and thereby made meaningful by way of communication. But try to think of some of the ranges here: sunrise, sunset, lightning, storm, vacation, traffic jam, carbonation, ex-con. How about sneeze or hiccup or walk? How about all the organs of the body? The heart, the liver, the brain. Is the brain really a thing, or is it a very complicated event that we can treat as if it's a thing? Look at all the events in sports. There's so many events in sports where the players just run around on the field, right? So take a basketball game. The players are out there, and player one throws it to player two, and then player two throws it to player three, and player three throws it to player four. Somehow the ball is always in a continuous state of movement. It is wherever it is, and there's just one huge unfolding event going on, and yet we can count the number of passes, we can count the number of shots, we can count the number of assists and throws. All of these kinds of things that exist in the world of sports, they exist only because we're able to transform those events into objects. Now, let me see if I can give maybe one last example. Well, let me real quick, two examples. Talk about days of the week and months, right? Months and days of the week are meaningful objects in our world, but they're not things that are in the world that then later we have come to name. There is a grand eventfulness that's going on, and we have transformed those events into objects by talking about them. Alan Watts tells a wonderful story. He says in 1752 the British government had effected a calendar reform that had basically made it so that September 2nd got marked September 14th. Well, a bunch of people ran to Westminster screaming, "Give us our days back." Now, this example of treating a fiction as if it were a fact really isn't that uncommon. In fact, we find it in science. Now, I think for the most part, people want to say that science relies upon empirical observation, and I think that that's true. Science also requires measurement, very precise measurement, and careful quantification. But measurement and quantification, these are fictions that we use to overlay our observations. We see our observations through numbers. Now, numbers are an excellent example of an event turned into an object. Yeah, a number is an event turned into an object. How is a number an event? Well, a number is actually an event. We can see it clearest in geometry. When we go to geometry, we start to see that pi is a very complicated event. Yeah, now the non-repeating decimals are very clear on that. When we find a whole number, that's just an object that's so pure that it allows for divisibility, right? But let's go back to the basics of mathematics. If you look at things like the basic units of science, right? There are things like feet per second or miles per hour. These are units of measurement. A unit of measurement is actually an event of measuring abstractly considered, and then we're able to quantify that. Look at light waves and sound waves. Both of those have a kind of wave factor. Now notice, the wave itself is a very complex event. It has a crest and a trough. Without language, where does the crest become the crest and the trough become the trough? What we find here is that we can quantify objects if we abstract them out from their embeddedness in the empirical world. And so I guess what I've been trying to do here in some of these different illustrations is to suggest that the world that humans live in is a meaningful world of objects. But those objects seem like they have meaning independent of us only if we haven't really thought carefully about language and communication. The more that we understand that communication turns events into objects and makes them meaningful things, we can start to understand all of the aspects of our world that have been rendered meaningful through communication. And this doesn't mean that we're making it up. That was the point that I've been trying to make about science there. Science requires fiction. Fiction is part of how we're able to tell the truth. And hopefully some of this makes sense to people. And I would encourage people, if you haven't yet, go get Dewey's book, Experience in Nature. It really is it's a great read. Thanks.